Hey guys, let's do this review here. Unit 11, testing individual differences. Um, we've done this a lot, so hopefully some of this rings a bell for you. But overall, testing, we know it as like intelligence testing. But just so you know, they also include like some personality tests in here. Okay, so just, I know it's weird, but throw your mind back to that personality chapter real quick and right, like humanistic and psychodynamic and trait perspective, all the ways that they view intelligence. Okay, so this first one, we already kind of talked about projective tests. Do you remember which ones? That was the ink blot test, like right, Rorschach, and then the TAT, the one where they tell the stories. But remember, a projective test is where they take their feelings and supposedly put it onto those images, onto that ink blot, or onto that TAT test. Okay. And then the TAT, right, the thematic apperception test, that's the one where there's pictures of things and they have to tell what's going on in the picture. Remember, that's a projective test as well. So that is putting your feelings onto those pictures, right? So if you see a man who left his wife, maybe there's something deeper underneath that, right? That's that Freudian belief. Okay, the MMPI, that is the most common personality test, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. Just know that's the most common one. It's actually even used to look at some disorders as well. Oh, and then Rorschach. Okay, there's the ink blot test. But both of those are projective. Okay, all right, so let's move on to the other testing the intelligence testing. Um, so remember this little analogy. Where is it? Come on. Cool. Oh, here we go. Okay. Remember this. This is my analogy of a dartboard. Ideally, in a really, really, really good test, right? If it's an intelligence test like the SAT or something like that. Okay. You would want to hit the bullseye here, right? You want to hit your mark. You want to be test what you're testing, but also you want to be consistent at it, right? You don't want one time you hit the bullseye and the other time you hit four, and then you hit one, whatever, right? So we're looking at reliability and consistency. So the first one says reliability. How consistent are you, right? Are you hitting the same, roughly the same spot every single time? So in test world, is the test producing consistent results? On the SAT, are you getting like a 1200 and then a 900? That's not very consistent. So a good test has consistent results. But valid has to be like, are you measuring actually what you're supposed to be measuring? I don't know if you remember, we talked about like predictive validity. It's like the SAT is supposed to predict how well you do in college. Content validity is the content, right? Are you taking this AP exam? Is there going to be math on it and calculus, right? If so, that is not a valid test. It's not measuring what it's supposed to measure. And what's tricky is like you could be reliable but not valid, right? You could constantly be hitting 5, 5, 5, 5 over and over and over, but you're not valid. So you want reliability and validity. Okay? Now, how do we know that a test has reliability? I remember for some reason this was like kind of a little issue when we talked about it, or maybe tested on it. So one thing you do, you take a test and you split in half, and is one half equal to the second half, right? That's a reliable test. Make sure all the questions are consistent there. They would do like odds and evens, that kind of thing. Okay, you could use different forms of the tests, right? SAT has different forms, Form A, Form B. A lot of those major standardized tests have this. And then you could just take the SAT and then you take it again, right? And that's how you find out if you're consistent. So retest, that's this one I just talked about, and then split test, split in half. Okay, now the word that standardization. Come on, scroll for me. Nope, cool. Okay. I've got a picture on here somewhere. Okay. separate on here, standardization. How do you know if you get a score of like 1100, what does that mean, right? Is that a good score? Is that not a good score? So standardization means that a pre-tested group has taken the test. A sample group has taken it. Why does that matter? Because then when the new people take it, you have a norm to compare it to, right? Where on the curve do you fall in? Okay. So yeah, why is it important? Because then you know what your score means, right? It gives it value and understanding. All right, I feel like you got this next one. The difference between an aptitude and an achievement test. An achievement test measures what you've learned. AP test is an achievement test. It's very, very straightforward. I'm scrolling, but I don't know where it is. Okay, I'll stop scrolling. Does that distract you? Okay. Achievement test measures what you're supposed to have learned already, where an aptitude test measures what you're supposed to learn in the future. So an aptitude test, or how you would do in the future, right? They say the SAT is supposed to be aptitude because if you think about it, like a lot of the SAT stuff, you'll never exactly learn those things. It's supposed to measure in your future, like how you do your ninth grade year, your freshman year in college. It's supposed to predict that. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the three different. Actually, it's yeah. Sorry. Spearman. He's like the main, like one of the main ones to know. All right. So I put this to you. Right? Is being athletic one thing? Is being intelligent one thing? And remember, we did that factor analysis, and we said, well, if you're intelligent, you can break it down to verbal reasoning, quantitative. You can do math. You can do it. Like all these things are say intelligent. But what Spearman says, he said that basically there is a general intelligence. I think it says right here. A general intelligence underlies all your intelligence. A general intelligence underlies all your general intelligence. So, if you're pretty good at math, your English is not going to be that far behind. I know people say, like, I'm best in this. Well, this guy would argue, okay, you're best in this potentially, but your other ones aren't that far behind. But if let's say your math is down here, well, your English isn't going to be that far behind either. Overall, you have a general intelligence that underlies everything. People miss this on the test, and again, I don't know, I'm not sure why. Something about the wording of it. Okay, so Spearman, one end of a spear. There's one intelligence. Gardner, that's multiple intelligences. Remember with his, so he has 8 different types. And if you remember looking at this, you've got your normal ones, linguistic, logical, mathematical, but then he goes into like musical and spatial and bodily, kinesthetic, and interpersonal, naturalist. And so this is, people question, is this considered intelligence? And there's arguments for it and arguments against it. That's Gardner. And then lastly, Sternberg has the triarchic theory. There it is. Okay. He's got analytical, which we think of analytical as that's like school, right? That's your basic school stuff. But then he adds creative, right? Creativity, that's intelligence. And I will say, like, talking to people that are really creative, I'm like, wow, your brain works so in such a different way, right? And then lastly, we talk about street smarts, practical intelligence. Okay, they're super book smart, but could they go and navigate the subway? I don't know, something like that, right? So that's Sternberg. How we remember that is 3. Stern, um, like a steering wheel, like the stern. No, that's a boat. I don't know. Good luck. Okay. All right. Stanford Binet, do you remember the equation? IQ equals blank over blank. Remember this? Can you write it down with remembering? IQ equals mental age over chronological age. Sorry, it's hard to find this stuff in here. Oh, here it is. I'll pause. Okay, I found it, right? IQ equals mental age over chronological age times 100. And you might see this guy's name with it. It's called the Stanford Binet test, but the American Lewis Terman really brought it to America, um, and in the world. But remember with this one is like you can't use this on adults because at some point your mental age doesn't keep growing, right? You're not that much smarter when you're 25 versus 26 or whatever. Okay. Oh, what is that? Go away. All right. So okay. All right. Look at this one for a second. What is the IQ of a 10-year-old who answers questions like a 5-year-old? Okay, so take a second. You had to do a little math. I remember on one test. Okay, so mental age here. That is, she answers like a 5-year-old. So this goes 5 over 10. All right, reduce that fraction. 1 over 2. So this is going to be 50. Okay, 50, which would be severe mental disability. I'm trying to think. There was a question. Oh, I know, on the test, and it said like, what's the ratio of an average IQ score? And the ratio is 1 to 1 of average, because an average would have, be right at 1 over 1 times 100. So if, like, let's say a 10-year-old scores averagely, so it's 10 over 10, which is 1 times 100. 1 over 1 was the answer. Okay, where are we? Okay, WAIS. Oh, there's achievement stuff. Okay, the WAIS is the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. This is the most commonly used intelligence test. They have a kids version as well. But basically, you've got lots of different areas that they assess. Verbal. I think just mainly just knowing that it's the most common. So this is the children's. I think I showed you, right, some of these questions like that they asked. A lot of different genres on that intelligence test. Okay, how is heritability related to intelligence? So, first question is, what is heritability? Okay, there's that famous fancy word. It just means like, to what extent are things inherited from your genetics, right? So, is intelligence part of your genetics, or is it learned? Nature nurture here, right? Okay, so we remember we talked about this, like what part of intelligence is nature or nurture, and it's both, as you know that, right? Intelligent identical twins score very very similar. Adopted children, that's a big one. Remember how adoptive children aren't similar to their adoptive parents? They're most similar to their biological parents. Okay. At the same time, though, there's plenty of evidence that shows you like being around peers that push you, being in certain schools and technology and all that stuff affects you. Okay. Where are we? The difference between crystallized and fluid. Remember that one? Crystallized intelligence is how much knowledge, like facts, that you build up over time. And really, the older you get, you continue to store up and add to your crystallized intelligence. So that, keeps improving. But fluid intelligence, that's how quick, right? That's problem solving. That's, the stuff that maybe makes your brain work a little bit more creatively and quickly. That declines as you get older. Okay. Next one, this one. Emotional intelligence. Okay, this is when I think about emotional intelligence, right? And that is how you understand your emotions and use your emotions. There you go. The ability to perceive others, understand, and then use your own emotions. You know that one. Okay, 2 more. Sorry. Stereotype that, okay, we've talked about this one a lot too. So, this is basically where minorities, there we go. Okay. Minorities, women are the ones usually affected by this. this belief that you will be, evaluated by this negative stereotype. And so a lot of times you really unconsciously play into that. The self-confirming concern that one will be evaluated, right? So we talked about like girls score higher when there's no males around, blacks scored higher when tested by blacks and when tested by whites. And so there's this looming threat that is hard to fight, but it can be fought, right? And hopefully, and it's related to self-fulfilling prophecy. And the last one, the Flynn effect. I'm not even going to scroll. This is the idea that over time, intelligence or IQ has gone up over generations. So technically, your IQ would be, or your generation would be higher than your parents, from your grandparents, all that kind of stuff. And why? I mean, there's so much, right? Improved education, access to technology, nutrition. I mean, so much stuff. So, okay, you did it. Woohoo! Bye. Okay, I said bye, but hey, real quick. In every chapter, just remember that there's more on that other study guide. Remember the study guide that has all the words? This is me trying to get stuff quickly in class. But if you do want to, I think it's important to glance over those units on the actual study guide with all the terms. Okay, I'm saying bye now for real.